The morning my brand new mailbox got its first piece of hate mail, I almost spit my coffee across the porch. There it sat, a thick cream-colored envelope with official notice, NO in compliance, stamped in blood-red letters like it was personally offended by my existence. Inside, the Willow Creek Homeowners Association politely informed me that my 5-acre slice of heaven was now contiguously integrated into their little beige empire, and I owed $5,000 in initiation fees plus monthly dues or else. I laughed so hard my wife Megan thought I'd finally lost it after 15 years of courtroom wars. "Ethan Brooks," she called from the kitchen. "You're scaring the dog." I waved the letter like a white flag of surrender that nobody was ever going to wave. "Babe, the Karens next door just declared war on our front yard." Our 12-year-old son Liam skated past on the driveway, earbuds in, completely oblivious. We'd moved to the edge of Willow Creek Estates in suburban Colorado exactly 3 weeks earlier for one reason: peace. After years of digging up corporate corruption as a federal prosecutor, I was done. Done with depositions, done with headlines calling me a troublemaker, done with the online mob that tried to cancel me for doing my job. I just wanted to restore vintage Indian motorcycles in my detached garage, watch Liam learn to wheelie without traffic, and listen to Megan laugh without checking over her shoulder. Our property line ran right along the back fence of their perfect little subdivision. Identical taupe houses, identical rock gardens, identical approved American flags no bigger than a dinner napkin. My land wasn't on their plat map. I double-checked with the county, the title company, and my own paranoid eyes. But apparently contiguous integration was the new HOA magic spell. I read the letter again, slower this time, tasting the bullshit like fine wine. Page 2 threatened liens. Page 3 mentioned administrative enforcement actions. Page 4 had the audacity to include a cheerful little map with my garage, circled in red, like it was enemy territory. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have paid just to make the envelope go away. Me? I'd spent 15 years making bullies choke on their own paperwork. So I did what any sane ex-prosecutor would do on a sunny Tuesday morning. I poured another cup of coffee and started highlighting. By noon I had my answer letter typed, printed in triplicate, and notarized like it was going to the Supreme Court. "Dear President Kensington," it began sweetly, "thank you for your generous offer to steal my property. Unfortunately, it is not, has never been, and will never be subject to your delightful dictatorship. Any further attempts will be treated as the harassment they are. Warmest regards, Ethan Brooks SQ." I attached every deed, every survey, every county stamp I could find, then mailed one copy to the HOA, one to the county recorder, and one straight to the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Unit, just for fun. Megan watched me seal the last envelope. "You think they'll back off?" "Sweetheart," I said, kissing her forehead. "They'll either back off or they'll double down like it's Black Friday at the Power Trip store. Either way, we'll know exactly who we're dealing with." We found out faster than I expected. That same evening I was elbow deep in a 1948 Indian chief, grease up to my elbows, classic rock humming from the shop speakers, when the hair on my neck stood up. Someone was watching. I stepped outside wiping my hands on a rag, and there she was, Victoria Vicky Kensington, mid-50s, blonde helmet hair that laughed at Colorado wind, pastel pink polo with the HOA logo embroidered like a presidential seal, clipboard pressed to her chest like body armor. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just stared at my garage like it had personally insulted her ancestors. "Mr. Brooks," she said in that syrupy voice people use right before they stab you. "I'm Victoria Kensington, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. I wanted to personally welcome you and discuss your compliance situation." I leaned on the gate, grinning the way I used to grin at defense attorneys who thought they had me. "Compliance? Lady, this isn't a cult. This is my land. Private. Paid for. Not for sale to your beige overlords." Her smile tightened like a noose. "We prefer the term community standards. Adjacent properties are automatically subject to our covenants under the new integration clause. Refusal affects property values, yours and ours." I almost laughed out loud. "Property values? You mean the ones you inflate by fining people for having the wrong shade of taupe?" Listen, Vicky, can I call you Vicky? I've spent my career burying people who thought rules applied to everyone but them. Keep sending letters and I'll start sending subpoenas. Your choice. Her eyes narrowed behind designer sunglasses. The last family who refused eventually saw reason and moved. I'd hate for history to repeat itself. She spun on her heel and marched off, heels clicking like little victory drums. I watched her disappear between the perfect hedges, then went straight to my laptop and ordered 4 more 4K security cameras with night vision. Because something told me Victoria Kensington didn't take no for an answer. She didn't. 3 days later, 2 sheriff's deputies rolled up like I was running a meth lab instead of rebuilding motorcycles. Blue lights flashing, hands near their holsters, the whole dramatic production. The taller one cleared his throat. Sir, we received a report of possible squatters occupying this residence and denying access to community-shared assets. I blinked. Then I laughed. A real belly laugh that echoed off the mountains. Squatters? On my own deed. Let me guess. The report came from a certain pastel-wearing president. The deputies exchanged the universal "we've been pranked again" look. I invited them in, showed them the deed, the survey, the title insurance, even offered fresh coffee. They left 15 minutes later apologizing and muttering about wasting taxpayer money on nonsense. But Vicky wasn't finished. Oh no. The next morning another envelope arrived. This one from the county building department citing unpermitted commercial activity in my garage. Then came the environmental health notice claiming I was illegally storing hazardous materials. By afternoon, Liam came home from school asking why the neighbors were whispering that his dad was dangerous. Megan's face went white when she read the latest. Ethan, they're not stopping. I stared out at the back fence where Willow Creek's perfect lawns ended and my wild grass began. No, sweetheart. They're just getting started. What they didn't know was that I was already 3 steps ahead. I'd quietly requested every public record the HOA had filed in the last 5 years. And buried in those PDFs was something beautiful. Forged signatures on a covenant amendment that magically extended their power to adjacent and related properties. Signatures from people who, according to county records, had moved to Florida 2 years earlier. I smiled at the screen, the kind of smile that used to scare witnesses on the stand. Game on, Vicky. The harassment turned into a full symphony of stupid by the end of the week. Every morning the mailbox groaned under fresh violations, noise complaints about my shop radio, set at a perfectly reasonable 65 decibels, zoning infractions for visual pollution, because my 1948 Indian had visible chrome, even an anonymous tip that I was hoarding junk vehicles. Liam started calling the mailman the Daily Karengram delivery guy, trying to make light of it, but I could see the worry in his eyes. Then they planted the barrels. I found them one Thursday morning. For rusty 55-gallon drums leaking black sludge right against my side fence, conveniently labeled waste oil, do not touch. They hadn't been there the night before. I didn't touch them. I just pulled out my phone, took 360-degree video, then called the county environmental officer and the sheriff while the cameras rolled. The environmental guy arrived first, took one sniff and snorted. These barrels are older than my ex-wife. Somebody staged this circus. The deputy bagged the barrels as evidence and actually apologized to me. But the damage was done, another case number with my name on it. Exactly what Vicky wanted. That night I sat in the dark reviewing footage. At 2:17 a.m., a stocky silhouette in a Willow Creek polo shirt rolled the barrels through a gap in the fence. I zoomed in. Dave Hargrove, Vicky's right-hand community liaison, always smiling like he was selling timeshares in hell. Megan found me at 3 a.m., still staring at the screen. Ethan, this isn't normal. They're escalating. Exactly, I whispered. And escalation is when bullies get sloppy. The next escalation came 2 nights later. I woke to the acrid smell of smoke. Flames were licking the side of my storage shed. Small but deliberate. I killed it with the garden hose before the fire department even arrived. The deputy found a half-melted work glove with a familiar embroidered WC logo. DNA later matched Dave's cousin, another HOA contractor. But by then they'd already moved on to the next bullet. An anonymous email to Megan's part-time teaching job claiming she had questionable financial history. My wife's hand shook as she showed me the message. They're coming after us now. Something inside me clicked into place. Not rage but cold surgical clarity. Vicky didn't just want dues. She wanted control. And when she couldn't get it, she was willing to burn my life down around me. Fine. Two could play that game. I upgraded every camera to infrared with cloud backup and encrypted storage. Then I built the first trap. In the one blind spot of the garage, a spot I deliberately left uncovered, I placed a dummy folder labeled Confidential Expansion Plans. Inside were staged documents suggesting I was converting the shop into a commercial restoration business without permits, plus a fake cash envelope and a sticky note that read "Keep hidden. HOA cannot see this." I left the side gate unlatched just enough. Then I waited on the porch pretending to read a book while Dave walked his dog, that didn't exist, across the street. At 10:42 p.m., the motion alert pinged. Dave slipped through the gate like a raccoon in khakis, snapped photos of every page, even opened the cash envelope and smirked. 3 different cameras caught his face, his HOA pin, the timestamp. I watched the footage in real time and actually laughed. A low, dark chuckle that made Megan raise an eyebrow. What's so funny? Vicky's about to learn what happens when you send your errand boy to rob a prosecutor. But I wasn't done. I dug deeper into the public records and found the real gold. The HOA had quietly amended their covenants 2 years ago with forged signatures from former residents. Even better, large consulting fees paid to Harrington Development Group, a luxury builder whose proposed Willow Creek Resort expansion map conveniently placed my 5 acres right in the middle like a bullseye. Vicky wasn't just drunk on power. She was a paid pawn helping a developer steal land. I packaged everything: trespass footage, DNA reports, forged signatures, financial trails, into Exhibit A and hand-delivered it to the county prosecutor. Then I set the second, even sweeter trap. This time the bait folder was labeled HOA Concerns. Do not let them see. Inside were even more convincing fake permits showing I was about to open a full commercial shop. I left the gate cracked again. Dave took the bait harder the second time, lingering for 4 full minutes, photographing every page like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls. 3 angles. Crystal clear. His HOA pin practically glowed in 4K. I labeled that footage Exhibit C and added it to the growing pile. The prosecutor's voice on the phone 2 days later was pure satisfaction. "Ethan, you just handed us probable cause on a silver platter. Trespassing, conspiracy, attempted fraud. We're moving." The emergency HOA meeting was called for that Friday night in the beige stucco community center that looked like a budget country club. I walked in carrying nothing but a USB drive and 15 years of courtroom calm. The room was packed. Pastel polos everywhere, nervous whispers, Vicky at the head table clutching her gavel like a scepter. Dave sat beside her looking smug. Their lawyer stood first, holding up printouts of the staged documents Dave had so helpfully photographed. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have evidence that Mr. Brooks is operating an unlicensed commercial enterprise right on our border. This threatens our entire community." Gasps. Murmurs. Vicky's smile stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I stood slowly. "Funny thing about evidence," I said, plugging the USB into the projector. "It tells the truth whether you want it to or not." The screen lit up with Dave slipping through my gate. Then the second clip. Then the third. Every angle. Every smirk. Every HOA pin. The room went dead silent. Someone dropped a coffee cup. Vicky's face drained of color. Dave looked like he'd swallowed his own tongue. I turned to the crowd. "This is your leadership. Trespassing. Tampering with evidence. Conspiring with the developer to steal private property through forged documents and harassment. And every one of you has been paying dues to fund it." Chaos erupted. Shouts. Accusations. Years of pent-up frustration boiling over like a pressure cooker. Vicky pounded her gavel, voice cracking. "Order. This meeting is adjourned." Nobody listened. I walked out while they were still screaming. Outside in the parking lot, a young mom named Allison slipped me a folded petition. At the bottom, in Vicky's perfect handwriting, use the Protect Wildlife line. Do not mention expansion. VK. I photographed it and texted it straight to the prosecutor. By sunrise the next morning, unmarked cruisers rolled into Willow Creek Estates. Deputies carried out boxes of files while neighbors filmed on their phones. Vicky came out in handcuffs, pastel polo still perfectly pressed, blonde helmet hair finally looking a little less invincible. Dave followed 10 minutes later. The local news van showed up just in time to catch her being read her rights on the steps of her own kingdom. The county prosecutor later told me they found enough to charge the entire board with fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and attempted arson. Harrington Development's offices got raided the same week. Turns out Vicky had been taking six-figure consulting payments to help them swallow my land and flip the whole area into luxury condos. 3 months later the HOA was dissolved. The beige empire crumbled. Residents who once nodded along to Vicky's every rule now gathered in the same community center laughing about the absurdity of it all. Megan got a heartfelt apology from the school district. Liam won first place at the science fair with a project titled, How Cameras Beat Bullies. And me? I finally got the silence I moved here for. Except for one small addition. At the edge of my property, facing the subdivision, I mounted a solar-powered LED screen. Every evening at sunset it loops the greatest hits. Vicky demanding compliance, Dave sneaking into my garage, Vicky in handcuffs on the evening news. Neighbors drive by just to watch. Kids take selfies. One old-timer left a six-pack at my gate with a note that read, About damn time. I don't run the screen for revenge. I run it for the same reason I fought in the first place, because people like Vicky only thrive in silence. And silence is the one thing I'll never give them again. So here's the question I leave you with, folks. When the HOA Karen comes for your home, your family, and your freedom dressed in pastel politeness and fake rules, are you the villain for fighting back with every legal tool you've got? Or is the real crime letting people like her rule the suburbs unchecked? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Because in the end, the only thing more satisfying than watching an empire of lies burn is knowing you lit the match.